I'm going to make a shorter version of this. I'm going to post a shorter version, and I'm going to post a longer version, because this longer version is showing you exactly what kind of mood I'm in today. This is the unedited version of what it is like being me on a day where I don't know what... I don't want to say what's wrong with me. I don't know what is up with me. What kind of mood am I in today? I'm in the kind of mood where I don't feel like talking. Specifically, I don't feel like interacting with the world. And then a very snarky and snippety mood. I'm in a very... What was the other? Oh, I went over this all in my head, and it's all perfect in my head, but as soon as I try to say it out loud, I've already said that. I'm done with it. I don't want to repeat myself. 0 or 100. Mostly 0. There's plenty of going on inside my head. Plenty that I want to do, but at the same time, I have no interest in doing it. Mostly, it's just literally my body is shut off today. My brain is completely disconnected from the world. And my body is shut off. I got up and I sat down in my chair, and there's like nothing there as my sister's talking to me. She's all excited and laughing her head off at the show that she's watching, and she's explaining to me why. And I did smile. Pretty big smile, and I kind of snickered. But would I have laughed harder? Would I have like engaged in it and actually discussed it on like any other day? Probably. But not today. Because today my body is not here. How else do I describe it? Some days are like this. And I don't know why. Is it physical causing mental, or is it mental causing physical? I really don't know. But I'm going to, because I'm in this type of mood, see, I watched a video earlier. I'm in a type of mood where, sure, I don't mind talking about the world, maybe learning about the world, watching YouTube videos, whatever. But I don't feel like interacting with it. I had to drive to the store. And I'm like, not there. I don't know how else to explain it. I'm not there, even though I'm the one driving the vehicle. Sure, I drive safe. We didn't get into a crash or anything, but at the same time, technically, probably shouldn't be driving on a day like this. Because I'm literally not there. I literally don't care about the world around me. I know it exists, I know I'm in it, I know there's people, I know there's vehicles, I know there's a million people making a million decisions around me that are affecting me, and that I'm affecting. You know, when you're driving a vehicle, that's what happens. And yet I'm in a mood where I don't care. I'm accomplishing the task that I need to accomplish, but only out of pure habit. My body is moving and doing what it needs to do, but my brain isn't here. And I watched a video earlier about, I forget what it was titled, and I'm not going to specifically say who did it, because I'm not trying to specifically pick on anybody specific, but it was self-care. And specifically about ADHD people and what self-care looks like for them. And I have to say, since I'm in the mood to like pick on the world, there's like so many terms these days that people love to throw around, and they're like so proud of themselves for throwing them around. Things like self-love and self-care, and what are some of the other terms? There's a whole whack of them, like literally a whole whack of terms these days that people are constantly throwing around, and they're literally so proud of themselves for throwing them around. Bullet journal. That's another one. I'm going to pick on all of you today because They're so proud of themselves for throwing it around like they know what they're talking about. They use like a whole ton of words. It's like this one book that I'm using. I'm not going to show you because it's one of the dumbest books I've ever read in my life, so don't read it. So I'm not going to show you what it is. But it's all about self-love and all this stuff. And people throw these words around and they're so proud of themselves because they're like, they sound so smart while they're doing it. And by the end of the day, I'm like, okay, what was the topic again? And like, you're talking like as if you told me what the definition is, but you actually didn't tell me what the heck you're talking about. Like, that's not a definition. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, I still don't know what it is. Well, that one's not gonna stay. It's too poofy. Let me put it up here because I don't like the buzz up there. I'm still in the habit of sticking a sticker over my camera on my laptop because a long time ago I heard how easy it is for people to hack that thing and then watch you and you have no idea they're watching you. And that's creepy. I'll stick that there. I don't care if it goes in the garbage later. Self-care. This was going to be way more on topic than it actually is because that's the type of day I'm having. I'm distracting myself doing this stuff because I can't talk to the camera today. So I have to do something else while I'm doing it, and that's distracting me. A butterfly. Let's try a butterfly. Will you stay on my finger? These aren't going to stay long. The first time that I wash my hands, they're all going to come off. Whatever. I should have put that one on this hand. What was I saying? Self-care. What the crap is self-care? Oh man, that's not gonna stick as well as I thought it was gonna stick. No fair, I thought it would stick. That's weird. What the crap is self-care? Man, now that's irritating me, that won't stick. What kind of day am I having today? Yesterday, it all started yesterday. Yesterday I ran over the same foot twice with two different... One was the garbage container thingy-mabobber, so it was pretty heavy, and another one was a food container thingy. He ran over the randomly, ow, and I like, my poor finger has a bruise on it because I like squished it in something super heavy, big heavy metal thing that like fell and went, and like it fell and went because I was trying to do something and it didn't listen to me at all, so it made a huge mess. So I was trying to clean up the huge mess, and there you go, another sticker on there. And it made a huge mess, and I had to clean up the huge mess, and then I dropped the thingy because it was a whole lot of whatever. And then today, I don't know, stuff falls, slips out of my hands, or whatever. It's like, And on some days, that's kind of day where like things like that are happening, and I'm like, explode at the drop of a hat. And today, it's more like, yeah, whatever. I don't care. Dumbest day on the planet Earth. Oh, I still have car ones. Basically, it's just a dumb day. It's just like a day where I'm like, everything is dumb. Why am I... What? And I did not expect to be in this mood today, and that's the weird part of it. I saw no indications that it was coming. Yesterday, it was kind of weird in like the way that it's kind of a little bit clumsy. Today, it's not that I'm clumsy. It's just that it's weird. I'm in an extremely disconnected mood today. There were things that I had planned and things that I was going to do, and I still plan on doing them, and I want to make a video about a character and why that character is actually an awesome... Let me see. The character himself is not necessarily that he's an awesome character. How did I figure out to word it? The character is a well-done character that the actor brought to life in a way that is absolutely epic. Put it that way. But unfortunately, I'm going to be making this video for myself, and I'm going to make it like specifically for myself, and I'm going to use like probably a whole whack of clips from the show, which means I most likely, like, there's a 99.999% chance that I will not be able to put it on YouTube. I don't know whether that show is on YouTube or not. But I'm going to use enough clips from the show because I'm making it for myself that I won't be able to put it on YouTube, I'm sure. So that's going to be a little sad. I don't know. I might end up like tweaking it and just sticking pictures over it instead so that maybe it'll work to put it on YouTube. I don't know. But first and foremost, I'm going to make it for myself, which means I'm going to use clips because that's the way that I want to enjoy it. And I've made a couple. Did I make 2? Yes, I made 2 videos that were referencing the Legend of Chusen, otherwise known as Noble Aspirations. And that's the one. At the end of the one video, I said, so why am I still watching this show? Actually, that's another video. And that's, yeah. I wasn't entirely positive if that really was why I was still watching it yet, and I didn't really want to like word it that way, so I like cut that part out and just said, yeah, that's another video. And yep. I do not like saying that I like bad guys because it's way more complex than that, and I am not in the business of promoting liking bad guys. It drives me insane when people like bad guys and they're like promoting them and excusing them and like acting like everything they do is okay and fine and they're cool and they're whatever, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Just because the bad guy is funny or just because whatever, like, it is not cool. This day and age is like literally obsessed with, like, I don't know why they seem to think that that's power or something. Where you're like a rebel that absolutely breaks all rules. All rules are made to be broken. You know what? No. The vast majority of these people that everybody's like, they're so cool and they're so powerful and they're so whatever. I'm like, no, they're a whole lot of self-centered jackasses. And that is not a word I usually use. So that tells you what kind of mood I'm in today. I think I said before that I don't swear, but sometimes I come pretty close. Some people just purely don't swear because they're on screen and people can see them or they're being professional, but once they're comfortable around you, they start swearing. That isn't me. I don't swear. I've come awfully close, and, well, admittedly, I guess there's a couple of times when I've been by myself that, like, under my breath, I have actually said swear words. That wasn't true until I don't know how many years ago. For the vast majority, over half my life so far, no, I didn't swear. And I don't swear. And, like, jackass or bullcrap is, like, about the worst you're gonna hear from me. But even that's rare. Because I don't swear. But when I'm in a mood like I am today, I'll say it like it is. But what was I even saying? Who was that? Yeah, they aren't cool. They aren't powerful. It's like, I don't know why people are obsessed with thinking it makes them epic somehow when they can say that they'll go to hell together and it'll be so cool, and like, you can be so powerful and whatever, you can go banging on God's door and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know how stupid that makes you sound? You think that makes you sound so cool and so epic, and it makes you, oh yeah, I'm so awesome that I can even do this. I can defy the gods. I can defy whatever. How did they put that in that show in Legend of Chusen? I think it was. How did he say that? Or was it in Chusen or was it in the 8? No, it was probably in Chusen. How did he put that? I can't remember how he put it. Something or other about defying the gods. You can do it and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's not much of a god then. People think they're so, like, all those old mythological, what is that called? Greek myth tales. I haven't read it yet. I got the book because it looks cool. But all those, like, Greek gods and all that stuff, where they're all like, that's not a god, you dummies. You think that's a god? That's not a god. That's just a human being with a whole bunch of unnatural powers and whatever. That's like a superhuman thing. And like in the Avengers and all that stuff, and the Thor and all of his people, and like, I think he said at some point, I'm not really a god, that's just the title people gave me. People are idiots sometimes. You think that's what makes you so cool? You think that's what makes you, like, it's not, like, okay. Whatever. What was I, like, I was originally, let's cover up this bruise here, why not? I was going to film the video on self-care, and then all of this kind of stuff came out. Self-care, I was going to make it really short and sweet and simple, which is the exact opposite of, that's the thought I had earlier on. The original thought I had earlier on. This is a very crabby video. This is what I'm like when I'm in a really crabby mood. And it's not the type of mood where I'm like explosively angry and nobody takes me serious. This is the type of mood where it's kind of dangerous because you really shouldn't get me talking. Because I say things and I'm like, I didn't care. You think I'm being mean? You think I told you I'm snarky and snippety today? Probably shouldn't be filming a video, but at the same time, sometimes these are the kinds of things I want to say, and I'm like, they need to be said, so I'm just gonna say them, and I don't care if you don't like me for it. It's the truth. I care way too much about what people think of me. I really do. It's a fault of mine. So here you go. This is me not caring. I'll say it like it is. What was it saying? Oh, self-care. It's one of those words that people love to throw around, and they act like they're so smart and so cool because they can tell you what self-care is and all this stuff, and I'm like, you know what? You've talked around in so many circles, I still don't have a clue what you're talking about. What the crap is self-care? There's apparently two different camps on what self-care is. And everybody loves to talk about the other side and how they're like, you know what, it's all of this, and it's not really like that. That can be what it is sometimes. And I'm like, by the end of the video, did you actually define what you call self-care? At the end of it, the problem that I have with it all is, even if they do define it, from what I have painstakingly gathered through all of these, like, rambly whatevers about self-care, from what I've gathered, they make this fancy title for it, and they make themselves sound so smart, but at the end of the day, like, again, my mouse pointer's, like, sticking up someone's nose. Just sitting in the middle of my screen, and a picture changes, and all of a sudden it's like, poke you right there in the nose. At the end of the day, apparently, all self-care is being a healthy adult. No, duh. I'm watching this video, and it took her like 15 minutes to say that self-care is being a healthy adult. No, duh. You make it sound like it's something super fancy and super whatever, and it takes geniuses to figure this out, and like, it's like when people are trying to tell you what a bullet journal is. I'm like, what's a bullet journal? And they're like, a bullet journal is whatever you want it to be. So I'm like, okay, so you mean it's this? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay then, so it's this? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well then you mean this? And it's like, no. And I'm like, well then what is it? And they're like, well, you know, it's whatever you want it to be. And I'm like, really? Really? What, self-care? They're like, well, this is what it's not. And well, this is what it kind of is. And well, this is what it's not. And I'm like, well, what is it then? And they're like, it's whatever you need it to be. And I'm like, are you flipping kidding me? It's whatever what? Just say it's being a healthy adult, would you please? End of story. She's like talking about, for me, some days it's just doing my laundry. I'm like, you mean being a healthy adult? And it's like, and for other days it's like going for a walk. I'm like, you mean being a healthy adult? And they're like, and other days it's like taking a shower or like meditating for a minute. I'm like, you mean being a healthy adult? Being a responsible adult, being someone that actually does their chores, someone that keeps their house clean, someone that takes care of their pets, someone that actually eats healthy food. You mean being a healthy adult, and a responsible adult. That's self-care. Why do you have to come up with all these ridiculously fancy terms to make people feel so special when it's like, this explanation has been around for centuries, and you have to like just come up with all these fancy titles. Like every time I turn around, people are coming up with another fancy title for something, and I'm like, by the end of the day, that's the same thing that's been around for centuries and centuries, and yet now you're like glorifying this and making yourself feel all special. And I'm like, you didn't come up with anything new. You're not cool. This is the same thing that's been around for centuries, and it took you 15 minutes to say what you could have said in like 1 minute. And I'm like, while I'm on the rant. I was watching another video about writing, and I forget what it was about. Sometimes I have to mute videos because I'm like, the way they're talking and their background music and all the rest of this stuff. You know how I say, like, in dramas and stuff, and they emotionally manipulate you? Oh, I've seen YouTube videos do that too. And she was talking about writing, and writing even when you, what was, I can't remember what the topic was, but either way, it was another one where it took her something like 18 minutes to say what she could have said in 1 minute. I'm like, if you don't feel like writing, do it anyway. Didn't even take a minute, it took 2 seconds. And she made a 15-minute video about it. You're kidding me. I'm like, I'm going to make a shorter version of this. I'm going to post a shorter version, and I'm going to post a longer version, because this longer version is showing you exactly what kind of mood I'm in today. This is the unedited version of what it is like being me on a day where I don't know what, I don't want to say what's wrong with me. I don't know what is up with me. I don't know why I get like this sometimes. Some days it just ends up being like this. And occasionally I can kind of tell, like, I'm like, yesterday I was having a very weird day. So in a way it shouldn't be a surprise that I'm like this today. But in another way it does surprise me that I'm like this today. Because I'm like, why? What on earth triggered this? What did I do? I don't know. It's not even that I'm tired. It's more, I guess, sort of in a way, it's more like most days I'm so anxious and so worked up, even if I don't look like I am. I asked my doctor a question. I'll get to that in a second. I wasn't going to mention it, but whatever, maybe I will. But most days I'm so anxious and so worked up and so whatever, even if you can't tell that I am, that then it's like, this is the type of day where it's the exact opposite, where my body is actually just off. Like, not off as in weird, as in off as in shut off. Like, if you get functioning from 0 to 100% of like moving, whatever, usually I'm at like a scale from 0 to 100, usually at like 90 or 95. Maybe on average the lowest is like 85 is usually what I'm functioning at, whereas today I'm functioning at like 20. Like I said earlier, I'm just off. I don't care. I don't care. So what I asked my doctor the other day, I asked him, like, I have a health condition that apparently is not common in Canada. It's apparently a lot more common in Asian countries and maybe even over in Europe, but it's apparently not common at all over in the US and in Canada. But I has it. And you know, I've talked about the fact that I'm a highly sensitive person, right? I went and saw, like, I was talking to a counselor and she told me that I'm a highly sensitive person. And you can get the book. I forget what it's called. Something about highly sensitive people by Elaine somebody, I think. I was like looking into all of that stuff, and it's like, is it a real condition or not? And they're like, in that book she was saying, yes, it is. It has to do with the nervous system and all this stuff. But then the therapist that I'm like been talking to lately, like, I told her that a counselor said that I'm a highly sensitive person. I think she made the comment that that's not a real diagnosis or something like that. I'm like, I can't believe that actually came out of your mouth just now. But so then I asked my doctor, because, like, I have such a bad memory, right? And I'm always telling people I have a really bad memory, and they don't understand what I mean by that. Like, I'm convinced people don't understand what I mean like that, and I try to explain it, and okay, maybe they do understand, like, I don't know. But I have a bad memory, and the thing is, it's not necessarily, like, I feel like the memory, like, I don't have a memory at all. I know I have a life. It's there. I can read about it, or I used to be able to read about it in my journals, and I do remember being there. It's not like, sometimes I read it and I'm like, I don't remember this at all. Like, it's disconnected, like it's someone else's story. And other times I'm like reading it and I'm like, oh yeah, I physically remember being there. I physically remember going through that, physically and emotionally and whatever. I remember that. That was me. It's not that the memories aren't there at all. It's more to do with the recall of it, I guess. The connecting to it. I feel very disconnected or dissociated from it. But it's like the recall, especially if I'm under any type of stress whatsoever, it seems like. Whether it's physical stress or mental stress. Like when someone asks me a question, that instant anxiety, instant mind goes blank. I haven't got a clue how to answer this question. It's all gone. And that's the kind of, like, it's there somewhere. Like, of course I have a favorite color, but what is it if you ask me? And so it's more of a recall thing. And I asked my doctor if this health condition that he diagnosed me with has anything to do with that, because I'm still trying to figure out what is causing it. What is this? Is it just all in my head, or is there some kind of physical thing doing something? Like, what is it? And I asked him, I'm like, does this have anything to do with it? And he's like, he actually got pretty serious for a minute there. He's like, that's a good question. Like, the way he said it, I'm like, oh, he's actually thinking seriously about this before he's, like, answering. And he said, like, a year ago, he would have said, no, it's got nothing to do with it. But apparently, just within the last year, a coworker of his did a study on it. And, okay, it didn't mean that I actually thought there was literally physically lesions on my brain or anything like that. I don't think that's the case, and that's not really what I meant when I asked if it had anything to do with it, because he said, actually, it turns out, it sounds like, can't remember how many people he said that there was the study on, but there was a small percentage of them, a very small percentage of them, I think he means did actually have lesions on their brain, where they literally didn't have the memory. It was like completely not there and whatever because of physical lesions on the brain, but you'd have to do an actual scan to find out if that was true or not, and there's not enough of a reason to do that on me. And I know that's not even what I meant, but like I was thinking more like, you know, because it's to do with blood oxygen, like the oxygen flow to my brain, and like if you're not getting the oxygen you can't think straight and all that stuff. And that's more what I was kind of thinking, is there something like that going on, is what I more meant. But he says that yes, this condition does have to do with it. And I'm like, I was kind of internally laughing, because the highly sensitive person, is it true or not? Well, this health condition that I have, he says it is the autonomic, I think is how it said, autonomic nervous system, the one that's out of our control. We have nothing to do with it. It's the system that, you know, like there's some body functions, you can hold your breath, sure, but most of the time, like breathing is not something within our control. Our body is doing it. Our heart beating, we have no control over that. Our heart beats on its own. There's a ton of stuff that our body does on our own. The autonomic nervous system, I believe, is the one that's like the automatic reflex, like when you pull your hand away before you realize that the stove is hot. Like it's the reflex, the knee-jerk reflex thing. And he says, yes, within my health condition that I have, the autonomic nervous system, I'm like, so basically it's acting inappropriately or reacting inappropriately. Yeah. Okay. So when I say I'm a highly sensitive person, like literally, it's not just something in my brain that I can control, okay? There's a lot of it. Like if I know about it, there's a way to control it. You can deal with it. You can like understand that this is what's going on, and you can calm yourself back down. But it's something that I have to fight hard to do, because like it's not just the mental, it's the physical too. I physically always have had sensitivities to lights, sensitivities to sounds, and it feels like lately some of those things are worse than they used to be, and some of them it highly depends on how stressed I feel at the moment. But yeah, like my nervous system is very stressed. My autonomic nervous system is easily triggered by physical things, and like yeah, so it sounds like my bad memory recall, it seems to me like if that's like the knee-jerk reaction, I guess that's how it like mine goes blank. Yeah, it's gone blank because I'm stressed for one reason or the other. So I guess that all is connected, which was quite fascinating to me. So like there you go. Like, I'm not making excuses for myself, and I'm not saying that the whole world has to now revolve around me and walk on eggshells for me. I'm just saying it is a real thing that a real physical doctor, a specialist, is telling me, And the autonomic nervous system is not something that I can, consciously control. It is something that's out of my control. I need to learn how to do things. So like, don't get myself worked up. If I can tell I'm getting worked up, calm back down and like whatever. But at the same time, when it's like boom happening, it's not as easy as normal people make it sound like it is. Okay, maybe for you it's that easy. For me it's not. And this is what I've been trying to tell people, and yet I didn't necessarily have any proof to back it up. Well, you know what? As I'm getting proof to back it up, I'm going to back up and I'm going to say back off. Especially on a day like this where I'm in the mood to not care. You don't live in my body. You don't know what it's like. Stop telling me what I can and can't do. I think I know a little better than you do. So, okay. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'll just end the... That's the longer version of it. That's the kind of mood I'm in today. That's the kind of... People probably shouldn't be around me today. Probably a good thing I'm by myself and that my sister went to work. Bye.